What's up, y'all?
What's going on?
Happy Tuesday. Welcome to another episode of Breakfast with Mark and Jen,
Let's go.
where we help your Christian marriage thrive.
Yeah.
Um, we have a great topic today.
Yep.
I think I say that every week, but we
Yep.
do have a great topic today because today's topic is opposites attract.
Mm-hmm.
Opposites attract.
Yeah.
So we want to tackle the idea that opposites attract and whether or not that's actually something that is healthy. Is
Mm-hmm.
that beneficial? Uh, you know, listen, just to give you a background story on us, in a lot of ways we're opposite.
Yeah.
But I would say, Mark, that a lot of times when opposites attract, it's probably not in anyone's best interest to marry someone that has nothing in common with them.
Correct.
So here's how Mark and I are opposites. Mark is a very even keel personality. He's
Yeah.
very level headed. He thinks things through. What I really admire about him is that he thinks before he speaks or before he acts.
Oh.
I have to be honest with you because I've had to be honest with myself. I'm not a hothead, but I'm just not even, if
Huh.
that makes sense. I'm
Right.
more emotional. I feel things really deeply. I think about things, but not in the way that Mark thinks, meaning Mark is thinking critically, how do I solve this?
Right.
How do I best say this to this person? I'm thinking, but it's more of an internalizing and
Yeah.
sometimes overthinking the
Yeah.
actual thoughts that don't need to get any more of my attention.
Mm-hmm.
We're opposites as it relates to Mark absolutely loves thrills and adventure. I have to be a little bit more convinced.
Yeah.
I like to
A
play
lot
it
more
safe.
convinced.
Okay. I like to play it safe. But we're compatible and we have other things that are in common.
Right.
We like a lot of the same foods. We
Yep.
like the same types of movies. We have a lot of the same design aesthetic
Yep.
when it comes to our home, actually.
Yep.
We both kind of like the same type of style in clothes, meaning the type of things that I think looks dope on a guy, Mark will like that. And then the type of stuff that he's like, oh, Jay, that's a dope pantsuit. Like
Yeah.
for a woman, I like that.
Yeah.
So the question then, Mark, is since it seems that opposites attract, number one, what I would ask you is do you feel that God is so intentional that he actually causes opposites to attract? And
Mm-hmm.
if he does, then why is it that you think some relationships seem to have an issue when they're opposites?
Yeah. I think absolutely God intended for opposites to attract. Because opposites attract physically. So male and female, right?
Right.
He didn't intend
That's
for
true.
male and male
Right.
to attract, right?
Right.
So on a basic level,
That's good.
that was his intention.
Mm-hmm.
Then he goes to the next level and says, if marriage is about two people becoming one,
Mm-hmm.
then it would make more sense for the opposites to come together and complement each other to become one strong whole unit. It wouldn't make sense for my weaknesses to align with your, or for my weaknesses to be the same as your weaknesses,
Mm.
and then we come together because we
That's
would
good.
be too weak
That's good. Yeah.
in the same area and the unit wouldn't be whole. So
Yeah.
if you think about a marriage as a unit
Mm-hmm.
where I'm weak in certain areas, you're strong.
Yeah.
And he intends it that way
Mm-hmm.
so that you can actually work together. If you have too much strength in the same area,
Yeah.
then you're actually going to have conflict.
Mm.
And no one party can give way to the other. I'm a firm believer
Yeah.
in opposites attracting
Mm-hmm.
on many levels.
Yeah.
When you really think about it, if both parties, you may have, listen, there's no hard, set,
Mm-hmm.
clear cut rules. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you're good with money and your spouse is good with money, then you have a problem. No,
Right.
I'm not
That's
saying,
probably a good thing.
yeah, I'm not saying you should get a divorce
Right.
because you're both good with money.
Right.
But what I am saying is that if you're both good with money to the extent that you both want total control over the money,
Mm.
that can be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And what God often does is he gives you your better half.
That's
That's
true.
why the term is coined that way, because if I need some growing, some health in
Yeah.
my financial outlook in life and how I steward money,
Yeah.
then it would make sense for God to hook me up with someone that's really good with money so
That's
that I
good.
don't fall into the ditch and I don't fall into debt. And I think that God intends it that way, number one. Why people have a lot of issue with it or they struggle with it is because they actually focus on the conflict instead of focus on how God's trying to bring about the resolution.
That's good.
So you see it as a negative
They focus
instead of
on
seeing it as a positive.
That's good. So the issue then is like what you're saying is the issue is not that they differ in certain regards. The issue is that they're focusing on
The
the
difference.
differences in a negative way
Correct.
and from a negative perspective
Correct.
rather than saying, hey, my spouse is excellent at organizing the bills
Yeah.
and I'm not. But now he thinks that because
Thank
he's
you.
excellent at organizing the bills,
Right.
he should be the one doing the bills. Why
Yup.
can't I do the bills? But sis, you know you're not good at organizing the bills. Listen, in our family, meaning our household, Mark, here's where Mark and I are compatible where it comes to money. Number one, we both believe in multiple streams of income.
Right.
Number two, we both believe that we're the head and not the tail. So you don't have one person with a poverty mentality,
Right.
one person with a wealth. We both have a wealth mindset.
Mm-hmm.
We're like a pastor recently said that we admire, and he said, "Hey, I'm not a nun or a priest. I
Yeah.
didn't take a vow of poverty."
Right.
So okay, but where we differ then is Mark just tends to be really great at wrapping his head around paying our monthly bills. So I'm not the person that has absolutely no clue what we have in our account. But at the same time, because by nature, just the way our marriage fell, from day one, Mark started handling the bills. I have access to the accounts. I don't have to ask him if I want to go buy a lip gloss. It's not like that. But at the same time, if he's better at doing that, if he naturally just fell towards that,
Yeah.
why would I get angry and say, Mark, who are you to organize the bills if I know that it just works for us? In
You
my
see.
parents' marriage, it's the opposite. My mom does all of that because she's so organized. She knows down to the penny what's in their account, where
Yeah.
the money has gone, where it's going to go,
Mm-hmm.
within the next week or so. My dad will be like, I have a general idea of what we have, but I just swipe my debit
I
card because
just
I know
swipe
my
it.
wife paid the
And it
bills.
always works.
Right.
I just swipe. And I think that is so good, Jen. I think that's
But
perfect.
he's never said to my mom, I'm the man, so you can't do the bills. You know what he said actually? You're great at that. You go ahead and do it. So that way I know we always have a roof over our head.
Right. And I think that's where the phrase opposites attract actually manifests or actually works. Because you can have opposites, but the question is, does it actually attract? So, are the opposite things in your marriage magnetic? Are they attractive? Are they bringing you together?
Right.
Or are they separating you?
That's good.
And when it works, the opposites aren't something that brings your marriage down. When it works, when it's ordained, when you know this is the person for you, opposites actually build your marriage up. When you start
Yeah.
looking at your spouse, I think it was a great point when you just said, hey, you know, why are you looking at it negatively and getting petty and you know you're weak in that area, but you have so much ego, you have so much pride, you can't watch your spouse do that better than you. You're
Yeah.
insecure
Yeah.
and you can't imagine that your spouse is smarter than you. Your spouse is, more educated than you. Your spouse has a better job than you. Your spouse makes more money than you. And we look at all these things as a negative
Yeah.
when God's saying, I put them there and I gave them that to help
Yeah,
you.
because you guys together are going to be able to accomplish such a deep sense of purpose and destiny because I made her strong here, him strong there. But then when the two come together, it's a force to be reckoned with.
it's a force to be reckoned with, and it's actually unstoppable.
Yes.
I think marriage is so powerful because God is saying partnerships is the currency
Yeah.
of your destiny and your purpose.
Hmm.
And if you want to accomplish something great, don't do it alone.
Yeah.
Do it with somebody else.
Hmm.
And if God has graced you to be in a marriage, that does not mean he's done it so that he can highlight your weaknesses.
Right.
He's done it because he's saying you coupled with that person,
Hmm.
you can actually take
It's
over.
great. It reminds me, Mark, of an
Yeah.
African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go
Right.
alone. If you
Right.
want to go far,
Right.
go together.
And listen, here we go because you're the reader. I read too.
He does read.
But let me say it this way because I read a lot.
Yeah.
It's not that you're the reader, you're the facts person.
I
So like
love history and
you
facts
can
and
pull off facts.
yeah.
I know I heard that somewhere. I just didn't know where I heard it.
Yeah.
I knew that, hey, it was a quote, it was a well known saying, but here you go. It's an African proverb. Who knows that? Like, who knows that? But again, I'm not out here saying I need to know it's an African proverb.
Yeah.
I got facts right next to me.
But you know what's funny about this is that a lot of times, and how often
It's for
do you
you to
say to
know.
me things such as, "Hey Jen, I know you put basil in our pasta sometimes, but what is basil actually good for?" I'll give you an answer.
Yeah.
But then sometimes I'll say, "Mark, why do you keep asking me these questions?" You're like, "Because when I ask you, you actually have an answer."
Yeah. The other day, I was asking you about ingredients in a medicine.
Yeah.
I was like, why do you think this medicine actually works? Like, why do you think the ingredients works better than this? And you're like, I don't know. Why are you asking me? I'm like, well, you always coming with these random facts. I figured you knew. You were like, have I read the label? Nah, but you don't have to read the label. You just be knowing these facts.
Listen, there's a
I,
shirt this guy had on at the store one day that I thought was great. He said, "I don't need Google because I have a wife." So I'm
thank
like,
you.
that must be a guy who's married to a woman that spits off facts like I do.
Thank you. Thank you. I got excellent grades in school.
Yeah.
And we both have our master's
Hmm.
degrees, but we got them different ways.
His, oh boy.
Yeah, we got them different ways. I ran a different race than you did. You sat at the front of the class, knew all the answers. Your project was done the day after the teacher assigned it, even
Okay,
though you had a month to complete it.
guys,
My project wasn't done until the night before.
I can't work like that.
I
That's where we're opposites.
Right. I got an A and
I,
you got an A.
Mark works great under pressure. I need time. Mark works great spur of the moment. I need a plan. So there's just a it's great how we fell into yet another example of how we work though. You know why? Because sometimes in life you need a little spontaneity. So you're great for that. Then there's times in life where you need to have a plan. You cannot just be out here doing everything spontaneously. And so that's where I come in.
Yeah. And I think that it is detrimental to your marriage. It is
Yeah.
borderline cancerous to your
Mm.
marriage if you're going to look at where your spouse is strong
Mm-hmm.
and then condemn them because you're not strong in that area
Mm.
instead of lifting them up and saying, thank you because you're on my team.
But it also would be tough on your spouse to condemn them where they're weak, just because
Yeah.
that's an area where you're strong.
Let's go. So there's a flip side to it,
Mm-hmm.
right, Jen?
Yeah, because if you know your spouse just isn't good in a particular area, but you're great in that area, what God is asking for you to do is just to be that strength in the marriage in that area, but He's not asking you to make them feel less than
Yeah.
because they don't necessarily thrive in that area. He's not asking you to hang it over their head and constantly remind them, you are just never good with numbers. Why can't you balance the checkbook the way I balance? But
Thank
if
you.
you are great with numbers and you can balance a checkbook, I don't even know if
I was
some of
about
the
to
people
say we a
watching this know
checkbook.
what a checkbook is.
When's the last time we balanced the
Right.
checkbook?
But if you know how to balance the account like
Yeah.
nobody's business, then that's okay. But why are you telling your spouse, I can't believe you don't know how to balance this account right?
And you'll be out here wishing for a spouse
Mm-hmm.
that can be good with numbers, and you're
Mm-hmm.
complaining saying, I wish I had a spouse that was good in that area. And you don't know it would be the wrong thing for you because you're good in that area, and you actually wouldn't get along
Yeah.
with someone that has a strength in the area that you're strong in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people are really missing
Yeah.
what God wants to do
Absolutely.
because they're getting on their spouse in these areas in which they're weak,
Yeah.
instead of realizing that, hey, I'm here to help them.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to, articulate how many couples are looking for their spouse to be something else
Mm-hmm.
because they feel like, man, like I just wish you knew more about, movies.
Mm-hmm.
If I only had someone that knew more about movies,
Right.
then life would be better. If I only had a spouse that was more sensitive
Mm-hmm.
instead of being so rigid.
Yeah.
You don't realize that because you're sensitive,
Mm-hmm.
if you had a spouse that was sensitive, it would be detrimental to your advancement in
Right.
life, because two weak people, two overly sensitive people would never be able to get along. And
Mm-hmm.
here's also what I wanted to say
Mm-hmm.
is that you shouldn't be afraid of opposites. Now, when you're dating someone,
Yeah.
if you're totally opposite, it's evident and you know that this is not going to work because this
Exactly.
person, we have nothing in common.
Yeah.
We don't even have anything to build upon.
Right.
But if you have made it down the aisle, you've been married to a person for a semblance of time, for a duration of time, that means you've had enough in common to get this far.
Yeah.
What you need to do is work on the opposites and bring them together and say, opposites work. That's
Mm-hmm.
why we're married.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's why we're married.
Absolutely. And I think if everyone, we've said this in other talks under different contexts, but if everyone could, or both parties could play their position
Yeah.
and excel where you're called to be strong, and also not be intimidated by your spouse's strengths, because those are areas where you can grow. So you
Yeah.
may never be them, but it's an area where God will use them to also help you grow in that area.
Yeah.
So if you're a person that, let's say you, before your spouse came along, really didn't know how to approach confrontation in a healthy way, and they do, you may never be them. You may never be as cool and calm and collected as them, but they
Yeah.
can help you at least grow and get better at handling tough conversations, handling confrontation. Why? Because they're great at it.
Yeah. They're great at it. And um I think that's why Paul, as he's talking about descriptions, wives should be keepers at home. And when he's outlaying and outlining the different roles in the house, I think he's also trying to draw distinct lines so that the unit can be strong and healthy.
Mm.
I think he's almost like a coach that looks at a
Hmm.
team and
Mm-hmm.
says, you play that position, you play that position. You know why? Because if we play our various positions well, then we'll actually win
Yeah.
because we're doing it together. So it's not necessarily and specifically about the wife keeping the house and
Yeah.
not having a job.
Right.
He's just saying, in my cultural context, in my
Mm-hmm.
society, as far as I can see, this is a great role for a woman,
Mm-hmm.
and this is a great role for a man. I don't think he was trying to say, okay, this is the only way it can work.
No.
He's just trying to say, generally, back in my day,
Mm-hmm.
given my context, this is a good formula, because if the woman is outside of the house and the man is outside the house, who's taking care of the kids? Because
Mm-hmm.
we don't even have daycare. We don't have
Right.
daycare
Right.
in Israel. We don't have daycare in Corinth. So
Mm-hmm.
somebody needs to be with these kids.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people are missing, is that we need to divide and conquer
That's good.
in order to win.
That's good.
So Jen,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what would be your thesis? What would be your conclusion? You know, would you be on the side that says opposites attract more than you would say opposites distract?
Yes, I would be more on the side that says opposites attract,
Yeah.
because I see it play out in our own marriage. I see it play out in other healthy marriages that we're, privileged to
Mm-hmm.
befriend or observe.
Mm-hmm.
And so I absolutely think opposites do attract.
Yeah. How do you think that even relates in the family? Because I think God is even intentional when it comes to personalities and kids.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have multiple kids in the house,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times they have different personalities
Yeah.
because he wants them to actually be cultivated in a dissimilar environment
Mm-hmm.
so that they can rub shoulders with someone that makes them better. What
Mm-hmm.
would you say about that? Because our kids kind of are different.
They're different, and I do think that you're going to see that with siblings.
Yeah.
I don't have siblings, but I see it even with you and your sister. I see
Yeah.
it with other siblings. I mean, my best friend is a twin, but her twin sister, they look alike. They do a lot of things together, but they're not the same
They're
person.
different.
They have different personalities,
Yeah.
different interests. And so I think with siblings, God is very intentional. And siblings, even if they're twins, they're just not the same. Listen, we have a couple that we're friends with
Right.
who almost a year ago had triplets.
Right.
Their triplets are
Right.
9 months old now. So shout out to a tribe called Three. That's a
Yeah.
tongue twister.
It is. I
A tr-
never.
but I know they watch our videos, so I'm gonna say shout out to a tribe called Three. And anytime their mom posts a video of them on social media, even at 9 months, you can see the different personalities coming out. And I'm sure their parents could attest to that even more because they
Yeah.
live with them.
Yeah.
But just having a small view,
Yeah.
small window into these triplets, I say to myself, oh my goodness, that one's a little more cheeky than the other one.
Yeah.
That one's a little bit more, you know,
Reserved
go
and
with the
cool.
flow. This
Yes.
one's always smiling. So you can already see it's going to be three different personalities.
God bless them, man.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just interesting because I think this topic has been really good,
Hmm.
and it's really shown a God perspective
Yeah.
because he's so wise, and the way he puts things together, it's really because he's trying to make us better
Trying to make us better.
and make us as best of a person or as whole of a person as we can be.
Yeah.
So
Believe it or not, your household's not going to function well if you're the exact same person in everything. It's actually not going to function well.
I can see there could be a lot of problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if you want to lead and I want to lead, that's a problem.
Hmm.
That's a big problem. If you want to drive and I want to drive, like even naturally, I love to drive everywhere
Yeah.
and you love to be chauffeured.
Listen, y'all.
And it works.
Listen, do not be surprised if when
Oh
my
God.
income jumps to a particular level, if I don't have
A
a
personal
chauffeur.
driver.
Listen, to me,
Listen.
that's the lap of luxury. Just, I don't have to park. I don't have to worry about rain. I don't have to. First of all, people from down south don't drive well in the rain anyway. So they make me nervous because
Listen.
rain is their inclement weather.
Right. And when we came down here, we were shocked.
And they told us, hey, we can't drive in rain. Some of them actually said to us, we can't drive in rain.
It's like bananas. People lose their mind when it starts raining. But like we never have to fight over who's driving. We
No.
all everybody knows we have our seats in the car. We just naturally go to our seats, no matter even how long the trip is. Sometimes people would be like, "Mark, you drove 7, 8
When
hours."
guys, I do ask to help him. Sometimes he won't
No, I
allow
was
me.
getting to that.
Oh, okay.
You drove that long. And I'm like, but guys, it's no sweat for me. It's no problem. I love to drive and drive and drive. If I get tired, then she'll jump in. She'll always ask, but most of the time, I'm good.
Yeah, I don't want to drive that. I want to help him, but I'm not driving all 7 hours.
So I think that opposites do attract, and this has been a good one.
Absolutely.
This has been a good one. Find your fit, find where you fit,
Mm-hmm.
find your opposite. When you find your opposite, man, cultivate that thing
Yeah.
and allow God to humble you
Yes.
so that you can receive your opposite and your marriage will absolutely thrive.
Yeah.
So, listen, this has been another episode of Breakfast with Mark and Jen. Grab the marriage course, grab the content, and stay connected. We got some big things coming,
Oh,
and I'm
yeah.
excited about it. We're going to take this thing to the next level
Yeah.
because we've been hearing so many testimonies already. Man, people come up to us and they're like, "Hey, I watched this episode when you
Hmm.
said this and that." And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay, y'all watching."
Hmm.
So it's been good, and we just want to help as many marriages as possible
Yeah.
win and be successful and be all that God created them to be together. So listen, click the like button or the subscribe button, share this, and connect with someone around this content. But we will catch you next time. This has been another episode of Breakfast with Mark and Jen. Until next time, take care.